The seeds of the 9/11 attacks were sown years earlier, fueled by a complex web of extremist ideology and geopolitical events. At the heart of this maelstrom was Al-Qaeda, led by the enigmatic Osama bin Laden. Bin Laden, a Saudi Arabian millionaire turned jihadist, had declared war on the United States, viewing it as an oppressive force in the Muslim world. He resented the American military presence in Saudi Arabia, home to Islam's holiest sites. Driven by this ideology, bin Laden began orchestrating a series of attacks against American interests in the late 1990s. These included the 1998 bombings of U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, which killed hundreds. However, these attacks were merely a prelude to bin Laden's most audacious plan, a strike on the American homeland. The 9/11 attacks were the culmination of years of meticulous planning by Al-Qaeda operatives. They involved the recruitment and training of a dedicated group of terrorists, many of whom were from Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries. These individuals were carefully selected for their commitment to the cause and their willingness to die as martyrs. Osama bin Laden, the mastermind behind the 9/11 attacks, was a complex and enigmatic figure. Born into a wealthy Saudi family, he embraced a radical interpretation of Islam and dedicated his life to waging jihad against the West. Bin Laden's charisma and anti-Western rhetoric resonated with disaffected Muslims worldwide, enabling him to build a global network of followers. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, often referred to as KSM, was another key architect of the 9/11 attacks. A Pakistani national with a degree in mechanical engineering, KSM is believed to have been the operational planner of the attacks. He reportedly presented the idea of using hijacked airplanes as weapons to bin Laden in 1996. Mohammed Atta, an Egyptian national, served as the lead hijacker pilot for the 9/11 attacks. Atta was known for his intelligence, discipline, and fanaticism. He oversaw the training of the hijackers in the United States and piloted American Airlines Flight 11, which crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. The morning of September 11, 2001, dawned like any other in New York City. At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11, en route from Boston to Los Angeles, crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. The impact, which occurred between the 93rd and 99th floors, sent shockwaves through lower Manhattan. Smoke and debris billowed from the gaping hole in the iconic skyscraper, as stunned witnesses watched in horror. Just minutes after the first impact, at 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175, also traveling from Boston to Los Angeles, slammed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. The world watched in disbelief as the two towers of the World Trade Center, symbols of American economic might, were engulfed in flames. The attack sent shockwaves through the nation and the world as people struggled to comprehend the magnitude of the tragedy unfolding before their eyes. As flames raged inside the World Trade Center towers, firefighters, police officers, and other first responders rushed to the scene. They bravely ascended the smoke-filled stairwells, evacuating as many people as possible from the stricken buildings. Their selfless acts of courage saved countless lives. However, the structural integrity of the towers had been severely compromised by the impacts and the ensuing fires. At 9:59 a.m., after burning for nearly an hour, the South Tower collapsed, sending a massive cloud of dust and debris cascading through the streets of Lower Manhattan. The North Tower, engulfed in flames, stood precariously as a symbol of the city's resilience. At 10:28 a.m., the North Tower of the World Trade Center also collapsed, succumbing to the intense heat and structural damage. The collapse of both towers created a massive dust cloud that engulfed Lower Manhattan, turning day into night. While the world watched in horror as the World Trade Center towers burned, a third hijacked plane, American Airlines Flight 77, was speeding towards Washington, D.C. At 9:37 a.m., the plane crashed into the west side of the Pentagon, the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense. The impact created a massive fireball and a plume of smoke. A section of the building collapsed and fires raged for hours. Meanwhile, United Airlines Flight 93 was also headed towards Washington, D.C. The passengers and crew fought back against the hijackers. At 10:03 a.m., Flight 93 crashed into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. 10:03 a.m., Flight 93 crashed into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. 10:03 a.m., Flight 93 crashed into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. 10:03 a.m., Flight 93 crashed into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The 9/11 attacks resulted in an unimaginable loss of life. A total of 2,977 people were killed in the attacks, including 2,753 people who died in New York City, 184 at the Pentagon, and 40 in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The victims of the 9/11 attacks came from all walks of life and represented more than 90 countries. They included firefighters, police officers, and other first responders who rushed to the scene to save lives, as well as office workers, business travelers, and tourists who were going about their daily routines. The 9/11 attacks had a profound and immediate impact on the United States and the world. The attacks plunged the nation into a state of shock and mourning as people struggled to comprehend the magnitude of the tragedy. In the aftermath of the attacks, President George W. Bush declared a war on terror and vowed to hunt down those responsible. The United States, with the support of its allies, launched military operations in Afghanistan and Iraq, targeting Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups. The attacks also led to a dramatic increase in security measures at airports and other public places. The Transportation Security Administration, or TSA, was created in November 2001 to enhance security protocols and screen passengers and baggage at airports nationwide. The 9/11 attacks had a profound impact on the American psyche. The attacks shattered the nation's sense of security and invulnerability, leading to a heightened sense of fear and anxiety. The 9/11 attacks ushered in a new era of global politics, marked by the so-called War on Terror. The United States, with the support of its allies, launched military interventions in Afghanistan and Iraq, targeting Al-Qaeda and other terrorist organizations. The War on Terror had far-reaching consequences both domestically and internationally. It led to the passage of the Patriot Act, a controversial piece of legislation that expanded the government's surveillance powers. It also resulted in the establishment of the Department of Homeland Security, a new cabinet-level agency tasked with protecting the nation from terrorism. The War on Terror had a significant impact on the Middle East. The US-led invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq toppled the Taliban regime and Saddam Hussein's government, respectively. However, they also led to protracted conflicts, instability, and the rise of new terrorist groups, such as ISIS. The War on Terror has been a subject of intense debate and controversy. Since the 9/11 attacks, numerous memorials have been erected to honor the victims and commemorate that tragic day. These memorials remind us of the human cost of terrorism and the importance of unity and remembrance. The National September 11th Memorial and Museum in New York City stands as a powerful testament to the victims. It features 2 reflecting pools inscribed with the names of those who perished. The Pentagon Memorial honors the 184 people killed in the attack on the Pentagon. The Flight 93 National Memorial commemorates the heroism of the passengers and crew who fought back against the hijackers. The 9/11 attacks continue to cast a long shadow over the United States and the world. The events of that day had a profound impact on American society, foreign policy, and the global fight against terrorism. The attacks led to a heightened sense of vulnerability and a renewed focus on national security. The United States implemented stricter security measures at airports and other public places, increased surveillance of its citizens, and launched military interventions in Afghanistan and Iraq in the name of combating terrorism. The 9/11 attacks also had a significant impact on the Muslim American community. In the aftermath of the attacks, Muslims in the United States faced increased discrimination, suspicion, and hate crimes. The attacks fueled Islamophobia, leading to negative stereotypes and prejudice against Muslims. The legacy of 9/11 is complex and multifaceted.